The wine hit the dress like a wound opening, deep red, blooming across $2 million of white silk, fast, unstoppable, in front of 400 people who had all gone silent at once. Everyone in that ballroom looked at the same thing: a waitress, a tray, a ruined dress, a mistake so expensive it did not have a number a person like her could hold. Her name was Imani. She had 30 seconds before her whole life came apart. And she had no idea that the most dangerous man in the room was already on his feet. Not to punish her, because he had spent 6 years looking for her face. By the end of tonight, the woman they are about to throw out of that room will be the only one left standing in it. Before we get into it, if you're here for the ones the world writes off in a single second, take a moment to subscribe. It helps this channel reach the people who need it. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight. I read every single one. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. To a diner, 6 years before, on the coldest night of the year. 6 years ago, Imani Okafor worked the graveyard shift at a roadside diner 2 hours outside the city. She was good at it, better than the job deserved. She could carry 6 plates and never look rushed. She remembered every regular's order and every regular's bad week. She worked doubles because her mother was sick and the medicine was not free. And she smiled at 3 in the morning, because the people who come into a diner at 3 in the morning usually need someone to. One night, in a snowstorm, a man came in bleeding. He was young, gray in the face. He held his side with one hand, and his coat was too thin for the weather. There was a look in his eyes she had seen before, on people being hunted by something. He sat in the back booth. He did not order. Everyone else in that diner found a reason to leave. Imani did not. She brought him hot soup he had not asked for. She brought the first aid kit from under the register. She cleaned the cut along his ribs without a single word about how it got there. She taped it closed. She gave him her own coat off the hook, because his was soaked through. He tried to give her money, a thick fold of it. She pushed it back across the table. "I don't charge for kindness," she told him. "Everyone's worth a warm meal at least once." Then she let him sleep in the back booth until the snow eased. When the men came looking an hour later, hard men asking hard questions, she told them she had seen no one. She lied to frightening people for a stranger whose name she never learned. He was gone before dawn. He left her coat, folded, on the booth, and under it, though she did not find it for hours, every last bill he had tried to give her. Tucked where she would only see it once he was long gone. She never saw him again. She thought about him sometimes. She had no idea what she had done. Life did not reward her for it. Her mother died that spring. The debts did not. Imani sold what there was to sell and moved to the city, where a person can disappear. She took the work a person takes when there is no cushion under them. Banquet halls. Late shifts. Trays 6 years passed the way hard years pass, quietly and all at once. What Imani did not know was that the man from the diner had been looking for her the entire time. His name was Rai Tachibana. The night she fed him, he had been 24. Wounded 1 week from either dying in a ditch or becoming what he became. He became the head of the Tachibana family, the most feared man in the west of the city. And in 6 years at the top of a world built on debts, he had never once forgotten the only person who had ever given him something and refused to be paid. He looked for her. He had people look for her. But a diner closes and a grieving woman moves, and someone who never wanted anything is very hard to find. The trail went cold. He kept looking anyway. He kept his mother's ring in his pocket the way other men keep a photograph. Which brings us back to the ballroom, and the dress, and the wine. The party was Rai's engagement, not his choice. His family had arranged it. A marriage to a woman named Senna, daughter of a house whose alliance would make the Tachibana name untouchable. It was politics wearing a wedding. Senna wore a $2 million dress. His aunt, Chiyo, ran the whole affair. Chiyo ran everything that made the family look strong, and this marriage was the strongest thing she had ever built. Imani was one of 40 waitresses hired for the night. She did not know whose party it was. She did not look at the man at the head of the room. She was working. Then a drunk man in a silver watch grabbed at her tray to snatch a glass. The tray tipped. The wine left the glass, and the world went into the slow motion it saves for the worst moments. Red, across white silk, across $2 million, across the bride. The ballroom gasped as one animal. Senna screamed. Chiyo moved like a blade. She seized Imani by the arm, hard enough to bruise, and her voice cut across 400 people. A clumsy, worthless girl. Did she know what she had done? Did she know what that dress cost? She could clean floors for 10 lifetimes and never pay for a single pearl on it. Imani's manager did not defend her. He appeared at Chiyo's elbow, apologizing, promising the girl would be gone by morning, his hands already washing themselves of her. The cowardly do their fleeing quietly. Imani stood in the center of the worst moment of her life. Her arm ached where the woman held it. 400 people looked at her the way you look at a stain, and Chiyo said the thing Imani would carry for a long time. "Look at me," she said. "Girls like you were born to serve at tables like this, never to be seen at one. Now get down and clean up your mess." And she pushed Imani toward the floor. That was when the man at the head of the room stood up. He had not moved during the scream or the grab. He had gone very still, the way dangerous men go still. He was looking at the waitress's face like a man seeing a ghost he had prayed for. Because he knew that face. He had carried it for 6 years. He had told himself he would know it anywhere. And now, here it was. Older, thinner, terrified in the middle of his own engagement party. He crossed the floor. The room parted for him without being asked. Everyone braced. When Rai Tachibana walks toward someone who has ruined something, that person's night usually ends badly. Chiyo actually smiled, certain he was coming to finish it. He did not look at Chiyo. He reached down, and instead of striking the kneeling woman, he took her hand and lifted her back to her feet, gently, in front of everyone. The room made a sound it had never made before, and in the half-second his body shielded hers from the crowd, while every eye was still fixed on the ruined dress. Rai pressed something small and hard into the pocket of her apron and closed her fingers over it. He said it very low, so only she could hear. "Hold this. Don't let them see. Trust me one more time." Then he straightened, and the mask came back down, and he told Chiyo evenly to have the waitress escorted somewhere quiet. Not out, somewhere quiet. Chiyo, confused, obeyed. You obey that voice. Imani was walked out of the ballroom on shaking legs, certain she was being taken somewhere to be dealt with. Her hand clenched around whatever he had given her. She was too afraid to look. They left her in a service corridor behind the kitchens. A man stood at the end of it, waiting, not guarding. She did not understand. Alone, under a buzzing light, she finally opened her hand. It was a ring, a diamond, old and enormous, in a setting she could tell without knowing anything was worth more than everything she had ever lost. It caught the ugly fluorescent light and threw it back like it was insulted to be there. Tucked around it was a scrap of paper, folded once. On it, in careful hand, 4 words. "I never forgot you." Imani stood in that corridor and could not breathe. She did not understand. She had never seen this man in her life. She had ruined a dress. She was a waitress. Why was there a fortune in her apron? And a note that made no sense? And then, slowly, under the fear, an old cold night began to come back to her. A snowstorm. A back booth. A young man too proud to be helped and too hurt to refuse. A cut along the ribs, a coat given away. She looked at the ring again, and she understood who had been sitting at the head of that room. Here is where most people's story would turn. A ring like that solves everything. It is a house. It is her mother's debts, paid 6 years too late. It is a plane ticket and a new name and a floor under her life at last. The man at the end of the corridor was not stopping her. She could walk out the service door and vanish, and no one would ever find her, because she was very good at not being found. She stood there a long time. Then she wiped her eyes, and she turned around and she walked back toward the ballroom. Because the ring was not hers. It had been given in a panic, in a crush, to keep it safe. And Imani Okafor did not take what was not freely given. She had not taken his money on the coldest night of her life. She was not going to take his ring on the worst night of this one. She would give it back. Then she would lose her job with her head up, the way she had lost everything else. She did not know she was walking straight into the thing he had waited 6 years to say. She came back through the doors as Chio was calling the room to order. The engagement was about to be made official. Sina stood in a hastily blotted dress. Rai stood beside her, somewhere far away behind his own eyes. Chio had a glass raised and the family's future in her mouth. Then a waitress walked back into the ballroom, uninvited, and every head turned for the second time that night. Chio went white with fury. But before she could speak, Imani crossed the floor to Rai. She held out her open hand, the ring in the center of it, and she said the only thing she had come to say. "I think you gave me this by mistake. I don't take what isn't mine." The whole room heard it. The whole room saw the ring, and Rai Tachibana smiled. A real one. The first one most people in that room had ever seen on him. And he did not take the ring back. He closed her fingers around it again. And then, in front of 400 people, in front of his aunt and his arranged bride and every important family in the city, he told them the truth. He told them about a diner on the coldest night of the year, about a man 1 hour from dying, refused by every door in the prefecture, about a waitress who fed him and stitched him, and lied to armed men for him, and would not take a single coin for any of it. He said he had made himself a promise, bleeding in that back booth, that if he lived, he would find her, and spend the rest of his life proving that kindness like that does not go unpaid in this world. Then he lifted the ring in her hand for the room to see. "This was my mother's," he said. "In this family, one woman wears it. The woman who leads this house." He had carried it 6 years, waiting for the only person he had ever trusted to walk back into his life, and she had just walked in, to return it. Which was, he said, exactly how he knew. He turned to Chio. The aunt who had built the marriage, the alliance, the untouchable future, stood holding a champagne glass that had gone useless in her hand. Rai did not raise his voice. He told her the engagement was over. He told her the woman she had dragged across the floor by the arm and ordered to kneel was the woman his mother's ring had been waiting for. And that Chio had spent the evening trying to throw the future of the family out with the trash. Old Sato stepped forward without being called. He had served Rai's mother for 40 years. He looked at the ring. He confirmed it to the whole room, in the voice of a man no one doubted. "Her ring," he said. "There is no mistaking it." Then Sato, who had bowed to 2 generations of the family, turned and bowed to the waitress. Senna, the bride, was not heartbroken. She had never chosen this either. In the wreckage, she took the first free breath she had drawn in months, and she gave Imani a small nod that meant more than any apology. Chio left the room alone. No one moved to stop her. No one moved to comfort her. In that world, that is the loudest verdict there is. They had told Imani that girls like her were born to serve at tables, never to sit at one. That night she sat at the head of one, in a wine-stained apron, with a fortune on her finger, and the most feared man in the city refilling her glass himself. The dress the room had gasped over was already forgotten. $2 million of silk, ruined and meaningless. The thing that mattered in that ballroom, in the end, was a bowl of soup handed across a diner counter 6 years before, to a man everyone else had refused. That was 3 years ago. Imani never went back to the banquet halls. She runs something of her own now. A fund, quiet and stubborn, that pays the debts of people one bad season away from losing everything. The way one bad season nearly took her. She signs the checks with a diamond ring on her hand. Rai is a different man than the one who was dying in a booth. Softer where it counts, harder where it protects her. And still unable to say the word kindness without his voice catching. They married in the spring. Small, no $2 million dress. Old Sato cried. People ask Imani if she ever thinks about that night. The wine. The whole room turning on her in a single second. She tells them she thinks about the other night. The cold one. The soup. She says she did not do anything special. She fed a hungry man and asked for nothing, because that is what you do. She will tell you it cost her nothing. It cost her everything, and gave it all back with interest. Here is the thing that world forgets. They keep their accounts in things you can price. Dresses, rings, debts. They think the expensive thing is always the valuable thing. They will ruin a person over a stain on silk and never notice the fortune walking their trays. But kindness is a debt too. The quiet kind. The kind no one writes down. And every so often, on the coldest night of someone's life, you hand a stranger a bowl of soup, and you have no idea you have just rewritten the ending of your own story. Never decide too fast who is beneath you. The person clearing your table tonight may be the only one who ever fed you for free. If one moment in this stopped you, the coat given away, the 4 words in the apron, the walk back to return the ring, tell me which one in the comments. I want to know what stayed with you. And if you know someone who keeps being kind in a world that keeps overlooking them, send this to them tonight. Some people need to hear that the quiet debts get paid.